Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. This isn't one of those stories where you'll need to wait until the end for the twist. The twist hit me in the face during the appetizer course. No warning, no build-up, just a polite dinner, followed by social annihilation. We were seated at this long, overly decorated table. Candles, silverware that looked like it had been passed down from royalty, cloth napkins folded like swans. Her family always did the absolute most, like they were hosting the Emmys instead of serving rotisserie chicken. I was already nervous. Her dad barely tolerated me. Her mom smiled like she had dentures full of lies. And Cambria? Cambria was already 2 glasses deep into some wine I couldn't pronounce. It was supposed to be a celebration. Her cousin had just gotten engaged, and they wanted to make it special. I didn't want to go. I told her I felt weird about pretending everything was fine. She said I was overthinking it, like I usually do, apparently. That phrase, "like you always do," has started to feel like a hammer she uses whenever I express anything remotely human. So I went. I put on the shirt she said looked less middle management. I brought that stupid bottle of wine her mom loved. I even complimented her brother on his new haircut, even though he once called me Cambria's tax write-off. And then, right when I thought I'd made it through the storm without tipping the boat, during some joke about how Cambria and I were finally starting to look like a real couple, she did it. She rolled her eyes, full stop, and said loud enough for the entire room to hear, "Don't call us a couple. That's ridiculous." There was a pause, like an actual physical vacuum sucked all the sound out of the air. Even the candles flickered like they were embarrassed. I sat there, frozen, my hands under the table gripping my thighs so hard I left fingernail marks. Her dad gave a quiet grunt. Her aunt made an awkward laugh. But Cambria? She just sipped her wine and moved on like she hadn't just slammed a sledgehammer through my chest in front of 12 people. You know what's wild? I didn't even say a word back. I just stood up, left my barely touched plate, my pride, and every ounce of self-respect I had left sitting there in that chair. That was 5 days ago. And if you think that moment was the worst thing she did to me, oh, I wish. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I just laid there on the couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like it had more purpose than I did. Her words kept echoing in my head. Don't call us a couple. And the worst part? She hadn't even tried to contact me. No text. No call. Nothing. You'd think after humiliating your partner in front of a room full of family, you'd at least check in. But Cambria? She had the emotional range of a thermostat, cold, mechanical, and perfectly comfortable watching someone else freeze. Around 3 a.m., I opened our shared photo folder on my phone. You know, the kind, vacations, birthdays, Sunday pancakes. I sat there like a fool, swiping through years of pictures, trying to find the exact frame where everything started to unravel. Was it her birthday trip to Denver? When she said she needed space, but still posted us holding hands? Was it last Christmas when she gave me a sweater 2 sizes too small and said, "Well, you never really wear what I get you anyway"? Looking back, every moment I thought was genuine now feels like a setup for the punchline I didn't see coming. The next morning, I finally got a text. Just one. "Cambria, can you grab your stuff later? I've got meetings." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just logistics. Like I was a delivery she forgot she ordered. So I waited until she left and drove back to our apartment. Sorry, her apartment. I stood outside for a few seconds before unlocking the door, half expecting to find my things in garbage bags or a neatly labeled Milton's box of sadness. But nope. Everything was right where I left it. Our bed, my sneakers by the door, the stupid magnetic poetry on the fridge. It was like walking through a museum exhibit of a life I used to have. I started packing. Slowly. Methodically. Couldn't even cry. It was like I was too tired to feel anything. But then, while reaching for my favorite hoodie from the closet, I knocked over one of her shoe boxes from the top shelf. When it hit the ground, it popped open, and what I saw inside made my stomach twist. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them, labeled by months and years. At first, I thought they were old birthday cards or receipts. But then I opened one. It was a printed email. from someone named Troy. The subject line read, "That weekend was unforgettable." And there were more. All from him. Different dates. Different locations. Different weekends. That's when the shaking started. This wasn't just about her denying we were a couple. This was about her rewriting the past, while living a whole other version of it behind my back. And suddenly, that moment at her family's dinner made perfect, horrifying sense. I just stood there, staring at those emails, my breath shallow like I'd been running. My hands were cold, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. This wasn't a dream. It was a gut-punch reality wrapped in white envelopes. Each one was a carefully archived reminder that I was nothing more than the guy holding the umbrella while she danced in the rain with someone else. Troy. The name meant nothing to me, but apparently he meant enough to her that she saved his digital love letters like trophies. Some emails had screenshots of plane tickets. One even had a rental confirmation for a lake house. Dated 2 summers ago, when she told me she was going to a solo wellness retreat. Yeah, she came back glowing. I thought it was yoga. Turns out it was Troy. The rage didn't come like I expected it to. Instead, there was this hollow numbness that settled into my bones. I looked around the apartment, our living room, the place we binge-watched shows, the table where I cooked for her every Thursday night. Everything suddenly felt staged. Like props from a play I didn't realize I wasn't the lead in anymore. I was just background noise while she was writing a whole other love story. I packed in silence. I didn't even finish reading the rest. Couldn't. Not yet. I just shoved the envelopes into my backpack, slammed the closet door shut, and threw the rest of my clothes into a suitcase without folding anything. I didn't care anymore. But when I got to the bathroom to grab my toothbrush, I noticed something on the mirror. It was a pink sticky note. Her handwriting. It read, "By Almond Milk." Right beneath it, another note said, "Troy likes oat better." As if she forgot which man she was living with. Or maybe she stopped caring about pretending altogether. I left everything behind. My toothbrush, my coat, even the wine glasses I bought on our 2nd anniversary. The ones she said made her feel like we were finally grown-ups. I didn't want any of it anymore. I grabbed my keys, slammed the door a little too hard, and got into my car. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even turn the GPS on. I just drove until the city lights blurred behind me like wet paint. I stopped an hour later at a gas station off the highway, parked behind a dumpster, and finally broke down. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, pathetic sobs into the steering wheel, like someone grieving a death no one else would acknowledge. Then my phone buzzed. It was Cambria. No apology, no panic, just 3 words. "Did you take it?" That's it. No explanation. No greeting. I stared at that message, trembling, trying to figure out what it was. But something deep in my gut told me whatever she was talking about, it wasn't just about the emails. Something was wrong. And I wasn't even close to the bottom of this mess. I didn't answer her text right away. I just sat in the car, staring at those 3 words. "Did you take it?" My first instinct was to assume she meant the emails. But the more I thought about it, the less sense that made. She had no way of knowing I found those. Unless she left them there on purpose. Unless she wanted me to find them. But why? To hurt me? To push me out without having to say the words herself? I wouldn't put it past her. Cambria never liked messy confrontations. She preferred slow suffocation wrapped in a smile. I didn't reply. Instead, I started the engine and drove back into town, but not home. Not to my parents, not to a friend's. I didn't want pity, and I sure as hell didn't want advice. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner I used to go to during college. The kind of place where the coffee tastes like melted pennies, but they don't ask questions when you show up at 2 a.m. Looking like you've just been hit by a bus emotionally. I slid into a booth, ordered black coffee, and pulled the envelopes out of my bag. My hands shook as I opened a second one. This one wasn't from Troy, it was from a woman named Elise. The tone was different, sharper, less romantic, more transactional. "We agreed this would stay buried," she wrote. "Don't make me involve legal again." My stomach dropped. I flipped to the next page. Attached was a printed photo. It was Cambria, clearly younger, standing in front of a car I didn't recognize, holding what looked like a file folder. The timestamp in the corner was from 6 years ago, long before I met her. I kept flipping. More emails. Some typed. Some screenshots. One was a lawyer's letter with Cambria's full name, threatening civil action over something I didn't understand. The words identity fraud were highlighted in yellow. I felt like I was unraveling a life that didn't belong to me anymore. Or maybe never did. When the waitress came over with the check, I realized I'd been sitting there for nearly 2 hours without touching my coffee. I paid in cash, got back in the car, and finally texted her back, "Take what?" Her reply came fast. Almost too fast. "Don't play games. You took the box. You weren't supposed to see that." The box. Not my things. The box. So she did mean for me to find it. But now she was panicking. I suddenly felt like I was in the middle of a movie where I didn't know the genre yet. Was this a breakup story? A criminal thriller? Or both? I wrote one word. Why? No response. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. Still nothing. And then around 4:12 a.m. my phone lit up again. But this time it wasn't a text. It was a call. From a number I didn't recognize. And when I answered, a man's voice said something that made my blood run cold. "You need to give it back. Before she gets desperate." The voice was calm, too calm, like someone used to making threats without raising their voice. I didn't say anything at first. I just gripped the phone tighter, as if I could squeeze answers out of it. "Hello," I finally said, my voice cracking. The man didn't respond right away. I could hear muffled sounds in the background. Wind? A car engine? Couldn't tell. Then, finally, he said, "You have something that belongs to her. It wasn't meant for you. Return it, or things get worse. For both of you." Before I could even ask who he was, the line went dead. I sat there in the driver's seat of my car, heart racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Who was he? Was he connected to Troy? To Elise? Or was there a whole new layer to this story I hadn't even scratched yet? I replayed the call in my head over and over again. He hadn't asked who I was. He already knew. That part stuck with me. Whoever he was, he wasn't guessing. He was expecting me. Suddenly, I didn't feel safe sitting out in the open. I started the car and drove to an underground parking garage near a business district, figuring at least there I wouldn't be easy to spot. I reclined the seat, locked the doors, and sat there in silence. My thoughts were spiraling. What was in that box that could provoke this kind of response? A few emails? A photo? Legal threats? Fraud? Then it hit me. Maybe it wasn't about what was in the box. Maybe it was about who knew what. Cambria had always been careful, curated. She told stories about her childhood like a politician, vague but emotional. Never too many specifics. She never had close friends from before, never showed old high school pictures, and every time I asked about her past jobs, she'd change the subject. I always thought it was just trauma. Everyone has some, right? But now, looking back, it feels like I was living with a magician, and I had just ruined the illusion. My phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I let it ring out. Then another. Then another. Each time I let it ring, until finally, a voicemail came through. I played it, hands trembling. It was her. Cambria. No greeting, no emotion. Just one line. "Milton, if you care about either of us surviving this, you need to bring that box to the corner of 7th and Dover. Now." She hung up. No explanation. No apology. No lie to smooth things over. Just urgency. Fear. And for the first time in our entire relationship, Cambria sounded scared. I looked at the backpack on the passenger seat, the edges of the envelopes still poking out from the zipper. I didn't know what was in them that could put us both in danger. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just infidelity anymore. This was something else. Something bigger. And somehow, I had stepped right into the middle of it. I didn't go to 7th and Dover right away. Something in me hesitated, like my instincts had finally woken up after being asleep for 3 years. Every logical part of me said, just give her the box. Wash your hands. Leave. But there was a piece of me, Maybe the last naive part still clinging to the idea that Cambria used to love me, that wanted to know why. Why all the secrecy? Why archive the lies so neatly? Why hold on to that life if she wanted it buried? I turned the key in the ignition, still parked beneath a corporate office building that hadn't seen workers since the pandemic. The lights flickered on in the structure across from me, motion sensor triggered by a cat or ghost. I didn't care which. The city felt like it was holding its breath. I opened the backpack and took out the thickest envelope, one I hadn't looked at yet. It was marked, Re-L. Mercer Settlement. I didn't recognize the name. Inside were typed legal papers, correspondence between Cambria and someone named Leland Mercer, apparently involving a consulting firm she worked at briefly 5 years ago. At the bottom of the last page was a check image for $75,000 marked, Final Installment, Non-Disclosure Compliance. I stared at it, my stomach tightening. A non-disclosure settlement? What had she done or what had been done to her that required silence paid in monthly deposits? Attached was a printed image of a man's ID. Leland Mercer. Age, 53. CEO of some regional development group. I looked him up right there in the car. His face popped up instantly. A handful of charity photos. Nothing scandalous. Married. 2 kids. No record, no press. But that just made it feel worse. Like whatever had happened was never meant to be found. Then I noticed a sticky note attached to the back of the final page. Cambria's handwriting again. But this time it wasn't a grocery list. It read, "If anything happens to me, show this to Sam in HR. She knows." I didn't know who Sam was. I didn't even know where Cambria was working now. She had changed jobs twice in the last year, both times saying it was too toxic or too corporate. I never pushed. I never thought I had to. I sat back in the seat, suddenly aware of how little I actually knew about the woman I'd been calling my partner for 3 years. Not just the secrets, but the gaps. The things she never said, the blanks she let me fill with hope and routine. The box in my lap didn't just hold pieces of a betrayal. It was a time bomb. And I was the idiot carrying it around in a $20 Target backpack, hoping for closure. I finally started driving towards 7th and Dover. Not to give it back. Not yet. But to see her face when I didn't hand it over. Because for the first time, I was starting to think that whatever Cambria had been hiding wasn't just messy. It was dangerous. I pulled up to the corner of 7th and Dover just after 5 a.m. The street was empty. The kind of early morning quiet that feels like the world hasn't decided to wake up yet. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows against the buildings. A bakery on the corner had just flipped its closed sign to open, but no one was inside yet. The air was damp, and everything smelled faintly like wet asphalt and regret. Cambria was already there, leaning against a bench, hoodie pulled up, arms crossed tightly like she was trying to hold herself together. She didn't look angry. She looked exhausted, pale, puffy-eyed, and thinner than I remembered. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the emails, the fake trips, the settlement, the other man, and the voice on the phone that said, "Before she gets desperate." I parked across the street but didn't get out right away. I wanted to watch her, see if she was alone, if anyone was watching from the shadows. But she didn't check her phone, didn't look around. She just stood there like a ghost waiting for the sun to burn her away. I finally stepped out, backpack slung over my shoulder. She saw me and stood up straighter. No smile, no sarcastic comment. That alone threw me off. "You brought it?" she asked. "I read it," I replied. Her eyes flickered with something, fear, maybe. She took a hesitant step closer. "Milton, please, you don't understand what you're holding." "You think?" I said, pulling the zipper open just enough for her to see the stack of envelopes. "You saved every lie you ever told. Neatly labeled, cataloged like you were planning to turn yourself in." "It wasn't for me," she said softly. "It was insurance, in case Leland ever came after me again." I froze. "Came after you?" She nodded. "That's what the settlement was for. I wasn't the only one he manipulated, but I was the only one who fought back. And I won barely. But part of the agreement was I couldn't talk about it. Not to you. Not to anyone. And the others? I asked. Some of them signed and stayed quiet. One tried to leak something and she vanished. That's why I kept the box. I figured if anything ever happened to me, someone had to know the truth. Why now? I asked. Why humiliate me at dinner? Why throw me away like none of this mattered? She swallowed hard, then looked away. Because you started asking questions. About my job. About my past. Panicked. I thought if I pushed you away, I could protect you. I didn't know what to believe anymore. She looked like she was telling the truth. But so did the Cambria who kissed me goodbye before flying off to yoga retreats. So did the Cambria who said she hated secrets. And now here she was broken, scared, and still trying to control the story. Before I could speak again, a car pulled up across the street. Black, tinted windows. Cambria's face went pale. She grabbed my arm. Give me the box. Now. I yanked my arm away. Who is that? I don't know, she whispered. But if they're here, we're out of time. The black car didn't move. It just sat there, engine humming, headlights off, like it was waiting for us to make the next move. Cambria gripped my sleeve again, but I stepped back. I wasn't going to let fear decide for me. Not anymore. I reached into the backpack and pulled out the thickest envelope. You said this was insurance, I said. Then we use it. Cambria shook her head. They don't care about truth. They care about silence. And this? She motioned to the box, her voice cracking. This box is a death sentence if it lands in the wrong hands. For once, I looked her in the eye and said something I never imagined I would. Then let's put it in the right ones. I turned and walked toward the corner where a small UPS drop box sat like it had been waiting for this moment. I pulled out the note she had written, the one that said, "Give this to Sam in HR," and wrapped it around the envelope. Cambria's eyes widened. You're mailing it? To someone you trusted. You wrote the note, not me. I pushed the envelope through the slot before she could stop me. It dropped with a satisfying thunk. Permanent choice. One I wouldn't regret. The black car slowly pulled away, never once rolling down a window or revealing who was inside. Just like that, it was gone. Cambria looked like she might collapse. I sat her down on the bench and handed her a bottle of water from my car. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. We just sat there, breathing, watching the sky shift from deep blue to a soft gray. She finally whispered, "You saved my life." I shook my head. I didn't even know who you were. And honestly, I'm still not sure I do. But I wasn't going to let this story end with fear. Cambria eventually left the city. I heard she started a new life under a different name in another state. We haven't spoken since that morning, and I think we both knew that was how it had to be. Some love stories don't end in romance. Some end in rescue. As for me, I started over, too. Different town. Different apartment. Same name, but for the first time, I don't feel invisible. I've started writing again. Nothing serious, just thoughts, memories, stories. Because it turns out when you survive something like this, your voice gets louder, even if it shakes. So yeah, she said, don't call us a couple. And you know what? I'm glad she did. Because it forced me to stop pretending we were. Thank you for listening. If you've ever been in a moment where the truth shattered everything you thought was real, drop it in the comments. Share a historical event that changed how people saw the world, or how you saw your world. This is Reddit Confessions, and I'm just one more voice learning how to live with a little more truth. We'll see you in the next story.